Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome you once again this evening to the airwaves of Salah Media. The time is just gone 3 minutes past 7 p.m. It is Wednesday night with myself, Inayat Wadi, as we unpack developments right across the entire world. And one area that we will always be focusing on until they gain their freedom is Palestine and the people of Palestine. Now, we've seen the brutality of the Zionist occupation manifests itself in more ways than one. Innocent victims right across the entire length and breadth of Palestine, and particularly looking at children. These innocent children have become products of this war on Palestinian children. And if I recall, one of the Israeli, the Zionist leaders, I think it was Ariel Sharon, who made a statement once where he says, the thing that I hate most is the Palestinian mother, because she has given birth to that thing that has the guts to stand up against the might of the Israeli army. And now that was a statement. And we've seen it over the years, many children. And the latest casualty, we are remembering 2-year-old Mohamed Tamimi shot and killed by Israeli soldiers. Now, this program has been brought to you courtesy and with the assistance of Shamshan, and they have assisted us in setting up this panel discussion tonight. And looking at the work, Two Sons Shamshan, a South African initiative that has aimed to capture and provide platforms to the voices of Palestinian children. They were launched in 2016 after having documented about 200 Palestinian children through interviews and art drawings that they made that reflected their life stories. Shamshan in Arabic means two sons, that came from the drawing of a 5-year-old Palestinian child, Ahmed Dawabshi, who was recovering in the hospital for almost a year after his family home was attacked by Israeli settlers. The settlers petrol bombed the home in the middle of the night, killing the boy's parents and his 18-month-old baby brother. This child did a drawing of two suns in the sky, as we wanted the world to always be sunny and bright. Shamshan has been served by two powerful young ambassadors from the village of Nabi Saleh, Ahmed Tamimi, whose father, Bassem Tamimi, hopefully will be joining the panel tonight, and Jannah Jihad, who is currently attending a UN youth conference. Shamshan has worked together with these and other children to grow platforms of engagement and campaigns for children's rights. These include a wide range of issues that impact Palestinian children, that include child detention. Now, Palestinian children living under Israeli military occupation in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip, are routinely denied their rights to life, their right to education, their right to adequate housing, and are denied access to healthcare, amongst other rights. Hundreds of these children are detained and prosecuted in Israeli military courts every year, where they are subject to rights violations, abuses, including physical violence, strip searches, blindfolding, and hard restraint with plastic hand ties. The psychological effect of these abuses are significant and enduring. So greater efforts are required to challenge and end Israel's prolonged military occupation of Palestine by exposing widespread and systematic ill treatment of Palestinian children. And this is the reason why we have assembled an esteemed panel tonight. And we're going across now to be joined by our panel this evening. We have got Jonathan Pollak, who is an activist against Israeli colonialism from Jaffa. We've got Manal Tamimi, Palestinian mother and human rights defender. Bassem Tamimi hopefully will be joining us shortly, well-known, long-standing former prisoner and activist. We've got our esteemed chief, Mandla, member of parliament in South Africa. Amina Salah, the sister of a 14-year-old Mahmoud Salah, who is currently detained. And we've got Professor Yusuf Chikte with the Palestine Solidarity Committee. To all of you, as you come up on screen, welcome to the show. Assalamu alaikum. And we do appreciate you taking time out and talking to us this evening right here on Salam Media.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for the invitation.
I'm going to start off with Chief Mandela. And I know you've been very vocal with regards to children in particular, to the extent that the latest with regard to Mohammed Tamimi, and looking at this young 2-year-old child, this little toddler, this innocent toddler that was so brutally murdered, and also at the same time calling for Israel to be held accountable for this heinous crime of killing a little innocent child, Chief Mandla.
Thank you, Inyat Wadi, and good evening. Salam alaikum to everyone on the platform, colleagues. First and foremost, for us, we would like to express our heartfelt condolences to the Tamimi family and the Palestinian people for their loss. It is totally unimaginable for a parent to lose a child, and a child in the manner that Mohamed Tamimi has been murdered, brutally shot in the head and killed by the apartheid Zionist state of Israel. And this, for us, has been a call into the global community to rise to the occasion and not be complicit. We have seen on many instances where children rights activists and groups often speak on platforms for children's rights. But when it comes to Palestinian children, they have a tendency to turn a blind eye. And we have, on numerous occasions, when we witness such a brutal maiming of children and the killing of children. Mohamed Tamimi is one of 200 children this year alone, 2023, that have been murdered and killed by the apartheid regime in Israel. And therefore, we want to condemn this inhumanity of the cold-blooded murders of Shahid Mohamed Tamimi and all Palestinian children. And we must ensure that we fully recognize all the children that have been murdered by this brutal apartheid regime. It has been clear to us as activists on the grounds and as Palestinians in the diaspora that the agenda of apartheid Israel has no regard for the rights of children in particular, and has no right for women and Palestinians in general. The rights of children as human beings, and the ones to systematically erase the Palestinians from the map. And in this regard, we need to take stock and look at our own actions in our respective countries. I believe that we ourselves as South Africans need to ask the question if we've been complicit in the brutal murder of Mohamed Tamimi and many other children in occupied Palestine. And I say this because if you do a thorough understanding and analysis of our government in South Africa, you will find that even though that His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa will often stand on the platform and speak in support of the Palestinian struggle, on the contrary, we have been able to witness the Israelis gaining free access into South Africa, whereas our Palestinian brothers and sisters are subjected to having to apply for visas in order to gain entry into South Africa. But also at the very same time, you have the national airline, LR, of apartheid Israel, flying into OR Tambo International, and they have a dedicated terminal to themselves. And these are the issues that we need to look into and exert pressure on our government to ensure that we are able to cut ties with apartheid Israel. We have been successful in exerting pressure on our government to turn the Tel Aviv embassy into a liaison office But I believe we can do more by sending a clear message to the world that we will no longer tolerate such, and send the apartheid Israeli ambassador to South Africa, back to apartheid Israel. And these are the actions that we think we can mobilize a society in exerting pressure on our government. But I think there's also some wins that we can applaud as South Africans and as activists on the ground, that we have seen not only the majority party being the African National Congress, but even opposition parties coming in support of the Palestinian struggle, that being the EFF, UDM, NFP, GOD, and Al Jamaa, all have been coming out in protest. So we are seeing a growing support for the Palestinian struggle, and therefore we need to ensure that we utilize this momentum to exert pressure on our government to do the right thing by boycotting and placing sanctions on apartheid Israel. But what is even more appalling is the complicity that we see South Africans through the school right here in the mother city, being Cape Town, Healthcare, being able to take its peoples to apartheid Israel and have them register into the military, that being the IDF. And these are youth that are used into murdering innocent children, like Mohamed Tamimi. And I think institutions like that in South Africa had to face the consequences of their actions, and we need to ensure that activists can bring them to court and they should be held accountable. But for us, it is truly a sad loss to lose such an innocent child at his real early years. A mother would have expected to see him grow and develop and enjoy the laughs and the joy he would bring around the family. But that life has been quickly cut. And therefore, it calls upon us to look at even legislation in the United Nations and look at the Geneva Declaration of Rights on Children that was instituted in 1924, but also see as to how we can amend the Declaration of Rights of the Child, which was adopted by the General Assembly on the 20th of November in 1959. I think we can do more in exerting pressure on the United Nations to adhere to its own resolutions that it has been able to pass within the United Nations. But I think this is the high time that we call on the ICC to immediately bring about charges against the murderers of Shahid Mohammed Tamimi and all Palestinian children who have been victims of the apartheid Israeli war on children and ethnic cleansing in particular. What we are witnessing is the systematic killing of innocent Palestinians, and witnessing a genocide that has been carrying on unabated since the dawn of the Nakba. The Nakba continues to live with us on a daily basis in occupied Palestine. Therefore, this warrants for the arrest that we need to call, particularly on the Netanyahu administration, for the death of Mohamed Tamimi.
Yes, we thank you for that, Nkosi Mandela. And we're going across to Jonathan Pollak. If you could just unmute your mic, please, Jonathan. I see Bassem Tamimi has joined us as well. Bassem, assalamu alaikum and welcome.
welcome.
Yes, Jonathan, just to bring you into the discussion and just against the background from what Chief Mandela has been saying, looking at your position as an activist, and you've seen a lot in terms of the brutality that has been unfolding as a result of the occupation of Palestine. Just looking at the policy, the stated policy of the Zionist regime, particularly against children, because we've seen it over and over again. It's a deliberate policy to kill these young, innocent children.
I think if we look at, I mean, I don't know exactly what the policy is. It's not officially stated, of course. Things like that are never officially stated. But if we look at the behavior, at what happens on the ground, then we can see rampant disregard to life of Palestinians and the use of violence as a measure of control. If we examine the incident, the recent incident in Abi Saleh, the murder of Muhammad, we can see, even if we take the version of the Israeli army and say that it's not argue with the facts that they state are wrong, but let's say that we go with their version. What they say is that that somewhere in the area, someone shot at the military guard, at the military tower that's positioned at the entrance to Abi Saleh. The soldiers' reaction was to shoot into the village indiscriminately, hitting a car with a 2-year-old baby and his father, killing the 2-year-old baby. Immediately after, once they've already known that the boy was severely injured, according to the Israeli army, again, their version, it was a mistake. Immediately after, what followed was a full-on military invasion of the village, taking over roofs and injuring even more people, shooting people in their homes, causing severe injuries to people from the village. That was their response to having learned that a soldier have critically injured a 2-year-old child. So when we talk about Israeli policy, and it doesn't matter if it's the stated policy or not, when we're talking about Israeli policy towards Palestinians and specifically towards Palestinian children, that policy is of brutal violence and brutal use of force to cement Israeli control over Palestinians.
Thank you for that, Jonathan. And we'll just bring Manal Tamimi into the discussion. Manal, just, you are a Palestinian mother. You are a human rights defender. And we've seen over and over mothers losing their young children, and as young as 2 years old, as young as 18 months old as well. And just, looking at it from a Palestinian mother's perspective, and the reason why I made mention of the quote of Ariel Sharon talking about hating the Palestinian mother the most because she has given birth to that child. And that is a child that they know at some point in time will stand up to the might of the Israeli army. And just looking at it from a mother's perspective, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts when you think of a 2-year-old child that has been brutally murdered?
First, thank you. And I think there's no words could express a mother feelings who just lost her child. The worst nightmare for any parent is to see their children suffering, especially that under occupation. Our children are targeted not for a crime they committed, but for their nationality as Palestinian. At the beginning, when we began our nonviolent resistance in 2009, we as activists, we took this choice that we want to resist, and we have to resist as long as there is occupation. But our fear was about our children, what we should do with them, because we don't want them to suffer, and by the end, it's not their choice, or they can't take this choice to resist or not. So at the beginning of the protest, we tried to keep them away, but after that we find out that the Israeli authorities, they are targeting children as a collective punishment for us as people of Nabi Saleh for the choice of resistance. So they began to arrest children, they began to shoot them. We have 3 children have been killed, or we have more than 200 children have been detained or arrested, and many have been wounded. Some even they left with some disability. So we decided then that we have to protect our children by helping them to go through this. So what we did, we try at the beginning, we make 2 cameras sessions or 2 camera workshops. We called it camera therapy, that we taught children how to use camera, still and video cameras, because we wanted also to teach them that not only direct actions with the soldier is resistance, but also there are other ways of resistance, and camera is one of these ways, and it's one of the most efficient weapons we have as Palestinian. And by the end of those 2 workshops, we give each child a camera as a gift to keep it with him. And when we saw that the Israeli targeting children by arresting them, especially that under Israeli law that they can arrest child who's up 14 and up, they can arrest him up to 5 years in prison for throwing stones. And normally when they arrest a child, they hold him in a police station without giving him his rights by having a lawyer or parents, or even have a record for the interrogation. And then they interrogate him in Hebrew and give him a statement or a paper to sign in Hebrew, which is a language children doesn't understand. And most of the time, these statements are against activists. And sometimes the child serve time in prison. So we did kind of legal courses for the children. We taught them about their rights. We brought ex-prisoners to talk about their experiences, and also we brought lawyers to talk about children's rights. And luckily after that, children, they refused to give any statement during the interrogation. Other thing that we did, we are aware about that if the mother is traumatized, she will transfer her fear and feeling to the child, and this way it's not a healthy under incubation to raise a afraid, insecure child. So we began to do. So we brought psychologists to work with children and mother in the same time, especially ex-prisoners or children who was wounded, to help them, to teach the mother how to deal with the traumatized child, and also to break the fear inside her, so she will be able to deal with the child. Unfortunately, Israeli authority, they are considering children enemy regardless their ages, and Muhammad is one of these cases. Muhammad, he was only 2 years old. He doesn't even have any dreams. He didn't have chance to dream, or he barely began to talk, he barely began to walk, he barely began to explore the world, and he began to worry about what's going on around him. And the first thing he was he was shot without any blink of the soldier, despite he knew that it's only a child and a father, because he was around like 20 30 meters away. It's not easy. We're unbreakable as activists, but what breaks us is our children and their pain and their suffering under incubation. So despite that, children are protecting protected under international law, international humanitarian law, all the international conventions and treaties. They are talking about children. But once, I think it's during one of the Ahd session, one of the judges said that international law are unimplemented or not implemented toward Palestinian children, and this is show the mentality. They are trying to implement the that says that elders die and children forget, which is not true, because what I saw yesterday during the funeral of Muhammad, children, they were so angry and they were determined that they will continue the way of the resistance, and they won't stop. So everything they are doing, it's become the opposite they want. The time they want to break us, we became stronger. The time they want to destroy our children, they became more determined to go on. It's not easy life. I wish that we can save all this under save this for our children, but unfortunately, as long as they are under incubation, they have to learn how to keep resisting and never give up.
Yes, we do appreciate what you just said, Manal, and just to bring Amina Salah into the discussion. Now, Amina, you are the sister of a 14-year-old Mahmoud Salah, who is currently detained. We had a campaign not very long ago. We had Abir Zayad out of Palestine. And at that point in time, we also highlighted the plight of child prisoners, or we spoke about Ahmed Manasra as well. But yeah, you're talking of a 14-year-old brother as well within this brutal Israeli prison system. As Manal mentioned, that children are still considered enemies by the Zionist entity. And if you could just share your thoughts, being the sister of a brother who is detained.
So, Mahmoud, he's now 18 years old. And on 23rd of May, he got arrested. They raided our home at 2 a.m. And they just come and put my sister and my mother, my father in one room. And then they went to Mahmoud and they told him, like, you're arrested. So he put his prosthetic and he told him, I want to say bye to my family. And it was really like, even my sister said, like, don't take him. He's my brother. This is our home. So go away. And then there's the soldier, they start to laugh. So they want to break us and they want to destroy not just children with their family. Like, you don't have a choice. But yeah, like, and then they took him and we didn't know where. And we didn't know anything about him. And, you know, it's like 5 years ago, he got shot and he lost his leg. And in the same day, after 5 years, he got arrested. So it's like, it's their policy or strategy. It's like, not just to like, yeah, we shot him and that's it. No, they keep doing it. They continue doing these brutal things for our children. So the last things what happened, we talked to the lawyer and he said, I couldn't do anything. He felt like helpless. He couldn't look at my families. And he said, I don't have anything to do. Like, because they said it's administrative detention, which is forbidden in all countries, just Israel government doing it. And they said he has a court day, so they will tell him if there's something, but there is no charges, no evidence. They said just the judge, he signed the paper, and actually they give us 2 days for court, and never happened, and never called Mahmoud. Just sent him the paper with the sign, with the signature that he has 6 months administrative detention. So as a family, we are so worried because in his situation with prosthetic inside prison, it's not easy. like, it's not easy for like children, but in certain circumstances, it's more difficult. So we always worried how he gonna go there, how he gonna deal with it, what they will investigate him, how they will talk to him. Every small details, it's like make us more worried. Like he started, got used to his life, open small booth, doing something, but they say no. They just came and have this power things and take him and destroy him. And like we are seeking for hope, like someone can help us in this situation and advocate Mahmoud's case and got released, because in his situation it's really hard to accept. It affects all the families, because our children, our lives, it's matter. It's not like just they can do whatever they want. We have the right. We have rights. He was playing and then he got shot and then he got prison. It's really too much for us to accept these things.
Yes, thank you for that, Amina. I think you have just frozen slightly, but I'm sure you should be okay. I'd just like to bring Bassem Tamimi into the discussion as well, being a well-known, long-standing former prisoner and also an activist, and just to look at the child prison system within Israel and the brutality of the system. And if you could provide us with an insight into the child prison system within Israel, Bassem.
Hello everyone, thank you to give me the opportunity to talk. I am honored to be with you, and thank you for all your effort, for your belief, and for our issue. I think all the colonization system is built to protect the colonization system, not for any for that. I don't believe of the Israeli law or the Israeli court, because it's part of the component of the colonization system in our land. We suffer a lot, and we have every moment we have a case and a story, and something happened everywhere. The children are targeted by the army, the land targeted by the settler. Everything is targeted in the Palestinian life, because the colonization want the land without population. Their strategy is to have Palestine without the Palestinian, and this is the most crime. The curve of the crime of Israel started from the high position, because they start with Nakba, and they destroy and make ethnic cleansing and killing a lot of Palestinians from the beginning of establishing what they named it Israel. I think we need the world to see what's happening in Palestine, and we need everyone to recognize our suffering and what we face from this occupation. But I think the world want to victimize our issue and to show it as a human rights issue. But I learned from the new generation when we were in South Africa, and we show a documentary show what's happening for the children in Nabi Saleh and other place, and the audience were crying. I had stood up and say thanks for your tears, but I don't like you to recognize us as a victim, because your tears is important, but we want you to recognize us and see us as a freedom fighter. I think this is the message of this generation, and this is what the new policy of the Israeli colonization want to broke this generation. For that, they attacking and
Yes,
we believe that we need you, but we need to build a partnership, not just have a solidarity and support. because to have freedom, we have the same enemy in everywhere in the world. It's the colonization, it's the imperialism, it's the capitalism, it's the white superiority. It's all that we suffer, all the same regime. I think we don't want to have the mistake of South Africa and talk about apartheid regime, because it's not apartheid regime. We don't recognize the regime itself. It's not a human right issue. It's a national right in Palestine. We need to have our rights and we end the colonization project in our land. Israel is just a guard for the interest of the colonization, the military industry, the capitalism, the economic system. We need to have our rights and build a state for peace, a state of peace for everyone, believe in our right, and he accept to have the right, the same right with us. But without destroying the colonization project and the Zionist project, we can't build any peace, and we can't live in illusion like before and like this moment, and how the world deal with the Palestinian Authority, which become part of the component of the colonization. It's harm our issue. It's we need to rechange the meaning of our struggle and our strategy and our goal.
Well, definitely. In fact, a very, very powerful message that came out of Ahad, was looking at the Palestinians and the way the world looks at them, the way we look at them, the way we as activists and those that support the Palestinian struggle looks at the Palestinians. And as you mentioned, not looking at yourself as victims, but rather as freedom fighters. And this is why I'd like to bring Professor Yusuf Chikte into the discussion. And Professor Yusuf, I actually wanted to bring you in right at the end, because I know you've been observing, you've been digesting what all the panelists have been saying until now, and just looking at it from your perspective, the Palestine Solidarity Committee, and always have been at the forefront of the struggle, but looking at what our panelists have been saying, and just some analysis in terms of what some of the key observations are. If you could unmute your mic, please, Prof.
I've muted it. Okay, great. Thank you. Good evening. And firstly, my condolences to the family and to Palestinians whose children are daily killed, systematically killed. It's a crime against humanity. And when that crime affects children, it becomes particularly horrifying for us to witness here. I would like to echo what Chief Mandela, Mandla Mandela has said in terms of what we need to do. But before I do that, you started off by saying that the womb of the Palestinian woman is a demographic threat to, and Israel looks at that, a woman, a child, as an existential threat to its existence. Now, how bizarre can you get? And in fact, in a perverse kind of way, it was Golda Meir who said that, you know, they can forgive, we can forgive it. This is her words, her wicked words. We can forgive what that they've killed our sons, but we can never forgive that we're killing the children. Now, that is the kind of perverseness inherent in Israeli politician society and the kind of propaganda that they make daily, casting themselves as the good, casting them signaling good, but causing intolerable harm. Chief Mandla mentioned that over 200 people were killed, and these statistics vary from day to day. There is a saying, you know, when thousands of children or people die, as in Palestine, it's a statistic. But when one person dies, as in this case, it's a big tragedy. This is the month of youth for South Africa, where the youth revolted against the oppression and exploitation starting in 1976 under the most severe and brutal conditions in South Africa. And we've dedicated the 16th of June this month to Youth Day. And And we know during the times of the Soweto riots, the Langa, and in Langa and across the country, then and after that, the funerals that we had, and this is what I want to say to the Tamimi family, the funerals that we had, the most difficult coffins to carry were the smallest ones. They were unbearable. It was very difficult to hold on to them. And I would like to acknowledge the pain, the grief, and at the same time, the rededication and the recommitment that we won't surrender. We won't submit, and we will sojourn on until that time happens when Palestine is free, and until then, South Africa will also be free. But let's look. It's often said that the war of Palestine, the war on the children, is from the womb to the tomb. From the mother's womb until they are buried in a tomb. Even there, they don't get rest. When a Palestinian child is born, as Bassem Tamimi has pointed out, he is denied his national rights, his birthrights. And that is what we must fight for. And that is what the Israelis, the occupiers, the Zionists, the colonialists are afraid of. This Palestinian child. He's denied a birthright. He's denied his nationality. He's rightless, voiceless, and landless at birth. And he must be, as in all colonial societies, he must be marginalized, exterminated, and in the words of Chief Mandla, which he's not using lightly, for us it's more than a word, the genocide against Palestinians for which Israelis must be held accountable. And that is what we need to do. So in this month of youth, what do we do? But before that, if the Palestinians are born rightless, voiceless, and landless, what is their life trajectory? They are born at checkpoints. They are denied their healthcare facilities. They are detained without trial. They are woken up in the middle of the night. Their schools are demolished. They are arrested they are detained without trial. They are arrested, they're subjected to arbitrary detention. This is the tactic that the fascist regime in Israel wants to impose on the Palestinians because, and Biden said recently that they stand for Israel and the United States are very closely allied. It's a friend of the United States. It's a security relationship. And Bassem is right. Israel is not only the litmus test for where we stand on injustice, but Israel is also the garrison state for imperialism to continue its pillaging and plundering of that whole region. And the Palestinians are the last front which they need to subject and subjugate to give them an easy passage to the rich resources of the Middle East, and which they've been doing since the time of colonialism. So that is an important point of departure. But when we use the word apartheid, what we say, it's a systematic and deliberate oppression of one group against the other. It's more than a word. It's a crime against humanity. It's an international crime. We want to hold Israel accountable for that. And what we're saying with that also, in this month of June, as the youth revolted against an apartheid system, against a colonial system, against a system of exploitation, which is still yet unresolved, we stand in solidarity and we salute the youth of Palestine in their fearlessness, in their bravery, and we'd like to match them in courage in terms of what they do. And we have spearheaded, what we're doing in this month is to identify with the prisoners, with those in detention, as was mentioned. And in particular, I want to mention Ahmed Mansoura, who has been falsely arrested, detained. A kangaroo court charged him. There are no judges in Israel for the Palestinians. You only have prosecutors. Those judges are settler judges. You cannot rely on those judges. Earlier on, there was an argument around, the law says this, the law doesn't say this. Of course, we must use the law to the best of our advantage. We must use every bit to get us out of our misery. But in Israel, as in South Africa, law and order in the hands of the colonialists are the twin violences which they exercise against the Palestinians to entrench their subjugation. And we mustn't rely on that kind of system. We cannot expect justice from the colonizers, from our oppressors, just as we cannot expect justice from those who collaborate with them. Collaboration is an instrument of our own oppression. So that is, but coming back to what is it that we can do? I think Chief Mandla spelled it out. We've also embarked, and this year, June, let us dedicate and identify with the Palestinians, especially the Palestinian youth, salute them, engage in acts which will increase, which will support their resistance. Somebody said it's about resistance. If we resist, they attack us. I think that is true. But even more important is because we exist, that's why they attack us. Because we exist, that's why they want to diminish us in terms of the establishment of a racist, supremacist Jewish nation state. And that is what we're fighting at. But more, there's one thing that we are doing in South Africa at the moment, and Chief Mandla will testify to this, and that is South Africa has more than a normal political, legal, and moral responsibility in supporting the Palestinians in all means that they require in terms of international law. South Africa must get out of just a normal, perfunctory kind of condemnation. We must spearhead from this part of the world an anti-apartheid convention based on a colonial infrastructure utilizing a Zionist ideology, which we need to dismantle, and we need to call upon the entire world to reactivate all the means at the United Nations in terms of the anti-apartheid convention, the crime against humanity, to dismantle and to hold Israel accountable for what they are doing in terms of the genocide against Palestinians. So that is an important part which we are beginning to launch in South Africa at the big level as well. But at a small level, at an individual level, at a people-to-people level, the world's hearts, the people's hearts are with the Palestinians. The swords of their governments are against them. And we need to engage in this civil society even more in terms of our activism to change the ways in which those governments operate, including our government. And we need to find out from the Palestinians, work with them, people-to-people resistance, which worked so well in South Africa, and see to what extent we can support and bring an end to the Palestinian Holocaust. Sometimes it's 75 years of oppression. Sometimes you wait for 75 years, and we must have that hope. That pessimism that is amongst us, it's not necessary. We must have that hope. Sometimes nothing happens for 75 years. And then because of what others have done, the foundations that they've built, 75 years collapses in 7 weeks. So let us have that optimism and continue to extend not only our solidarity, our support, but our active engagement in the Palestinian struggle in Palestine and outside of Palestine. Thank you.
We appreciate what you've just said, Prof, and also to bring Chief Mandela back into the discussion now. I see time is of the essence, and we've got a huge panel that we have assembled this evening. But also, Chief Mandela, just following up from what Professor Yusuf is saying and talking about activism and the level of activism where we need to actually step up a gear. And every time when we see a tragedy like this occurring, we've seen it not very long ago in South Africa. We've seen the Nakba rallies. We've seen what had taken place in Pretoria, where we've seen 75 organizations coming, commemorating 75 years of the Nakba. And this is the pressure that we need to be putting here in South Africa. You mentioned El Al. O.R. Tambo, you mentioned Israel is not requiring visas. These are issues that we have brought up even with the Minister of International Relations, Dr. Naledi Pandor. I personally had an interview where we've raised these issues. But again, collectively, I think as a collective, as activists, as Palestine solidarity organizations, as people who hold the cause of Palestine very, very dear to their heart, we need to take it to another level. We need to step up a gear.
No, absolutely, Mr. Wadi. For us, it is important as activists on the ground to consolidate our efforts. It is futile for us to be operating in silos. We need to come together as individuals and collective and ensure that our efforts are coordinated so that we can have the impact that the Palestinians need from us. But also we need to look into the multiple facets where the struggle for a liberated Palestine can be waged. And this requires us, first and foremost, to call for unity amongst Palestinians. They need to set aside their partisan lines and be able to come together as oppressed Palestinians. This is what we were able to achieve as South Africans. It was only in the 80s when we set aside our partisan lines and came under the umbrella of the United Democratic Front that we were able to mobilize the masses of our country in support for the struggle for liberation. And therefore, it's paramount that we call for unity amongst political parties in occupied Palestine, as well as civil society. We have seen the work that BDS has been doing in mobilizing civil society right throughout occupied Palestine, and we need those numbers. Secondly, we need to also look at the Palestinians in the diaspora. There is 7 million Palestinians living in the diaspora, and we need to ensure that we activate those voices to be ambassadors of the Palestinian struggle. We've seen the impact of social media and how effectively it can be utilized to conscientize people in the global community about the Palestinian struggle. Our own South Africans living in exile during our darkest days in the struggle were able to crisscross the globe and mobilize support, particularly for the anti-apartheid campaign, as well as the Free Nelson Mandela campaign, which not only spoke to the release of Nelson Mandela, but of all political prisoners. And therefore, we need to ensure that we rally the support of the Palestinians in the diaspora. Thirdly, is to look as to how we can be able to mobilize the international community in support of the Palestinian struggle. And therefore, it is to look into exerting pressure on our governments where we are. We have seen the activists on the ground in South Africa who are continuously calling for an international solidarity conference to be held here in our shores that will bring not only the SADC region, but the entire continent, as well as the international community to this conference. Last year, we were able to participate in a conference in Dakar in March, Senegal, where we were able to mobilize 21 countries in Africa in support of the Palestinian struggle. And this is the work that we continuously need to do in ensuring that we really support for the Palestinian people, but also looking at global local institutions such as the Pan-African Parliament that we host here in South Africa in Midrand. Every member state in Africa comes to the Pan-African Parliament and sends about 5 to 8 delegates to attend the Pan-African Parliament. And therefore, through the chairperson, which is Chief Charumbira from Zimbabwe, who is even more sympathetic to the Palestinian cause, we need to ensure that the Palestinian struggle is placed high on the Pan-African Parliament's agenda. On every sitting that they have here on our shores in Midrand, we need to be visible and carry that message in order for us to rally the support of all the African countries. But we are happy to see that the observer status that was unilaterally taken by the chairperson of the African Union, it took South Africa with the support of Algeria and Kenya to rise to the occasion in ensuring that we revoke that status. And we have successfully been able to do that. And we therefore need to identify the countries that are in the forefront of the supporting of the Palestinian struggle. Like in the SADC region, you have South Africa. In East Africa, Kenya is on the rise. And I think we should be affording countries such as Kenya and Tanzania our full support because of the role they played in their own struggle for liberation. Africa as a continent understands very well the atrocities that came with colonialism, but also with the brutal regimes that we had to wage our very own struggle for liberation in order for us to attain the freedoms that we have today. And therefore want to call on all citizenry in our country and political formations. And we are happy that this has been able to mobilize not only the majority party, but also opposition parties have begun lending their support to the Palestinian struggle. And it's for us to therefore utilize this momentum in exerting pressure to our governments right throughout the continent and in the global community to boycott, divest, and put apartheid Israel into sanctions. And we continuously want to say to the Palestinians that they should never give up. For us as South Africans, it took us 350 years of fighting colonialism, coupled with 60 years of apartheid brutality. What we are seeing and witnessing with this desperate Netanyahu administration is what we were seeing in the mid-80s and towards the end of the 80s, where we had a very desperate apartheid regime that was going all out to mete out all forms of atrocities to our people. But we were able to overcome. Today, South Africa is free. We enjoy the freedoms that we have because of the support we had from the global community. Tomorrow, Palestine will be free. And we look forward to joining the Tamimi family, the Salah family, and all Palestinians in working in a free Palestine.
Well, we certainly look at that as well, inshallah, and we say amen to that. And just to bring Jonathan back into the discussion, Jonathan, just as an activist and the one issue that looking at your challenges that you are faced with as activists in Palestine, and also at the same time, looking at the entire world, looking at activism, inspiring activism for Palestine throughout the entire world, for one simple reason also, is a total lack of accountability on the part of this brutal Zionist regime. They have not been held accountable. We've seen what has happened with Shireen Abu Akleh, despite the evidence being very, very strong. We see the case now about Mohamed Tamimi, and there are hundreds of others as well, where there's been a total, in fact, a regime that is gone rogue, a regime that is gone renegade, that doesn't care, that doesn't give a damn about what the world says or what the world thinks. Now, how do we step up a gear there as far as activism is concerned, but more importantly, putting pressure right across the entire world to hold this Zionist regime accountable? If you could unmute, please.
Yeah. So, like you said, one of the core issues is that Israel isn't held accountable for its apartheid and colonial policies, for its violence, for its brutality. And this is something that that we all have to that we all have to fight in order to bring to an end. It's each of our the individual responsibility of each and every one of us, and it requires collective action, not only here in Palestine to bring down Israel's apartheid regime, but also, like you said, worldwide. We need us to create a strong solidarity movement to mobilize civil society around the world and force politicians, because politicians don't do things out of merit. Politicians do things because they're forced to. Right now, relationships with Israel are financially beneficial. They're economically important. And it is on civil society, it is the responsibility of civil society to do everything within its power to force governments, to force politicians and institutions to stop supporting Israel and demand accountability and bring an end to Israeli apartheid and colonialism.
Thank you for that, Jonathan. And going across now, we're going to Manal. Now, Manal, one thing we've learned, and over the years here in South Africa, and also with the recent campaign that we at Salam Media had hosted with Abir Zayad, who came out of Al-Quds in Jerusalem, is to look at the Palestinian woman, the Palestinian mother, the strength and the power of the Palestinian mother. And one message that came very, very clear is the first line of defense in many instances is the mother, is the Palestinian woman, who have been steadfast, they've been resilient, they've never ever given up. And I think what the world needs to appreciate, looking at it from a woman's perspective, from a mother's perspective, just how powerful this is for a Palestinian mother to be applauded for being this pillar of strength and this first line of defense against all odds, against all the brutality that unfolds.
To be honest, it's not easy to be strong with all this brutality, but I believe that the Palestinian woman, she's the main pillar of the family. So if she's strong, the whole family gonna be strong, and if she's weak, the whole family gonna be weak. But in the same time, she's a human being, and she feels tired. She feels sometimes stressed, angry, and she has the right to feel this. But the most important that we as Palestinian women make this as only minutes or seconds, that we take it for ourselves, so we recharge the recharging again. Of course, for the Palestinian mother, she's suffering double, because she suffers her own man, if he's father, brother, son, and she has to support him all the time. And she has her own suffering, because she's also been targeting. She's been arrested, wounded, and even killed. So it's not easy under this occupation to deal with all these things. But during the all these years, we learned how to keep going, how not to give up, because if we give up, the whole cause gonna be I don't want to say destroyed, but it's gonna be weakened, and this is something we don't want to be, and it's impossible even to reach this far. So during the history, you could see a role model of Palestinian women in all levels, and these women is also role models for us, and they're gonna be also role models for our children, who gonna learn from them. I hope that in the near future, that all Palestinian, not just women, not just children, they will enjoy freedom, and they will enjoy the peace, and taste the taste of victory. Maybe not in the near future, but I know that Palestinian women will never give up, and they will give birth for heroes, and they will keep raising children to keep fighting, never give up. Doesn't matter what is the price, or and doesn't matter what they have to sacrifice. The most important is to reach free Palestine and the victory.
Yes, we appreciate that, Manal, and also we'll bring Bassem into the discussion. I see he's not here. Amina Salah is still with us. Amina, we the one issue that we don't seem to focus a lot on, and this was brought to our notice not very long ago through some of the people here in South Africa, is the plight of the Palestinian prisoners, particularly the young children. And these campaigns need to be ongoing because, we know what had happened not very long ago as far as Ahmed Manasra is concerned. But we'll find that, many of the prisoners that languish for years and years, and it is only when they pass away, like we've seen in the case of Khadr Adnan, and also, we've seen many other prisoners who are in dire need of medical care, who are in a very, very critical situation. It is only then that the world wakes up and the world notices and the world starts taking note of the plight of Palestinian prisoners. And I'm sure with your brother as well, I'm sure, that this is something that should not be forgotten. It should be a campaign that should be ongoing, and it should be a campaign that is putting pressure on the Zionist regime all the time.
Yes. So I just want to say, they want us to be helpless, useless, accept the situation, but it's never gonna be. It's our life now under occupation. We're facing a lot, and the prison, it's something it's more difficult. Like now, Walid Dakka as well, he's facing death. He has a cancer, and they never give him release. They want to, they give this message: we want him to be killed. What do you want from man? He has a health situation. What do you want him under in the prison? So that what we can do, I'm really thank you for this opportunity, because we spread awareness for everyone, not just Palestine, for every countries. And we focus more about the prison, what they're dealing there, how they giving administrative detention for people. So they I give you 6 months, but you will not be free. When it's this 6 month end, they will renew it. And there's thousands of Palestinian people in prison got administrative detention. And it's really they want to destroy them. They have life, they have families, and they want to do what they love to do. But Israeli occupation, they want to destroy it more and more. So we keep doing this campaign, we keep spread the awareness, and we will never give up.
Well, definitely, and I see even Shamshan, who had assisted us in facilitating tonight's panel discussion, have also undertaken to look at the support campaign for your brother Mahmoud Salah as well. So that will be ongoing. I see Bassem Tamimi is back with us, and we are obviously heading towards closure. In fact, we actually overrun on time, but it's fine. We can just still continue for the next few minutes. Bassem, just looking at the Palestinian struggle in itself, and looking at the youth, the Palestinian youth, and the future of the youth, looking at how the struggle, because we know that youth are challenged in more ways than one with technology. So much has happened. And they could they could easily lose focus. Just your thoughts on the Palestinian youth in terms of the struggle and the future for the struggle towards a free Palestine. I think Bassem, we are I don't know, for some reason or the other, we can't hear you. Possibly we could log in again. But we'll just bring Prof. Yusuf Chikte back into the discussion, Prof, as we head towards closure, as well as, as a lot of the panelists this evening has alluded to, that there has got to be a sustainable campaign. There's got to be sustained pressure. And looking at our situation in South Africa, to some extent, we operate in silos, and Chief Mandela also mentioned about coming together, a joint effort, a united effort for Palestine. How critical, how crucial is this? Because we know that the Palestinians hold South Africa in very, very high regard. We speak to people, we speak to analysts, we speak to academics out of Palestine all the time. And the one message that comes very, very loud and clear is they look at South Africa, they've looked at our ugly history of colonialism, they've looked at our ugly history of apartheid, and they always seem to take a cue out of South Africa. So there is a lot of hope in South Africa, but at the end of the day, we need to also deliver on that hope that the Palestinians have and that faith that they put in South Africans.
Yeah, so South Africa shouldn't be, as I said earlier, by a normal standard in terms of its solidarity. But I just want to pick up on the issue that was raised about the prisoners. Our demand is free them all. Free them all, free them unconditionally, and free them now. That was our demand when we had prisoners in Robben Island, political prisoners, and we will ensure that that the prisons are unable to contain the ideas that the prisoners were detained for or imprisoned for. So that's an important one. And I think I think there are many other things are happening which we shouldn't miss. You know, the Palestinian society, the enormous resilience that they have, despite the demolition of schools, especially if you speak about children, what's the life of a Palestinian child? You know, we saw that one picture of that one young Palestinian girl student. When a house was bombed, she clutched the notes, and it was a poster pic for wanting to go to school, striving to be educated. And Palestinians are some of the most highly educated people in the region. So we must look at that kind of resilience. We spoke about women as well. We've got lots of cultural capital, social capital that we can draw from, and that we are continuously drawing from. And so those are important ingredients in our struggle. And how do we unite intersectionally across these different forms of struggle, education, health, the demand for political rights, which is paramount, as Bassem has said. We mustn't be neutralized. Human rights are important, but we mustn't be neutered in terms of only campaigning for human rights as if something will happen if only the colonizers will see the error of the ways. No, it's much more than that. It is the dismantlement of a system of systematic oppression and exploitation, which has an international reach in Palestine. But the question is, how does one unite? You know, we had a saying, references were made earlier. We had a saying borrowed from Latin America, El Pablo Unido, Vencido. The people united will never, ever be defeated. So I think that is very important. And what we're grappling with, and that is the one of the inspiring moments that we have coming from Palestine, the Unity Intifada, that we don't look upon ourselves in separate ghettos. We are Palestinian. We are not only from Gaza or the West Bank or Jerusalem or 48, whatever. We are all Palestinian from the river to the sea, and we want all our land back. And we want all our land back now. So that kind of conceptual change that has occurred is very important. We're not fighting individual little battles, little fires. We're fighting the big battle. We're fighting for a united, free Palestine, dismantled from the colonizers, where the grip of the colonizers, the hands of the colonizers on our land, on our labor, and our liberty is chopped off. So that is what we are fighting for. And the unity is important, but the unity on the basis of what is even more important. We can unite as we did in Oslo, with the Oslo Accords, where we gave half our land, much of our land away. Or we can say, no, that is not the kind of unity that we want. We want a unity that maybe have been a temporary kind of measure that has taken place, and we cannot undo the past. But we are not going to yield a single inch of Palestinian land. They tried that in South Africa, to make us into Bantustans, to make us into urban blacks, and to make us into tricameral parliaments. They tried all these kinds of tricks. And the important thing, sometimes as we stand for the freedom of Palestine, sometimes it's not what you stand for, it's what you fall for that's important. So let us have it very clear that a united, free, undivided Palestinian with full democratic rights for all Palestinians, whether they and the right to return and the reparations that come with that right, is central to our demands for what we envisage to be a future Palestine.
Thank you for that, Prof.
I must be quiet.
No, in fact, I see Bassem Tamimi. In fact, I actually agreed with what you say. So obviously, body language is important, Prof. But I see Bassem Tamimi, and just to come back to the question that I had raised, looking at the future of the struggle, looking at the Palestinian youth, you yourself, obviously the father of Ahad Tamimi, know very well, you've got first-hand account in your own home in terms of what the youth feel about Palestine and how the capacity that they have to take the struggle forward.
Thank you again. I'm sorry that I am going back because the people is coming to visit my wife because she was attacked yesterday and she out of the hospital before 2-3 hours, and the people are coming, and a lot of call coming for from journalists and other to ask about the funeral and other thing. But in general, when I have a discussion with the new generation, with Ahad and her generation, we must let know about our mistake and let them know about what we do and what we succeed and what we have a mistake in our historical struggle. They told me all the time, you and your generation and the previous generation and the Abu Mazen and all the political party, you struggle, you had to go to jail, you had been killed, a lot of people killed, injured. The political party and Yasser Arafat and all the Palestinian party, they give a big price of peace. They give up talking about all the historical right of Palestine. They talking about Israel and Palestine. They trust the international law. They trust the international community. They trust all the state. They believe of Oslo agreement. But what they gain? They gain nothing. They gain loses. You gain loses, and we have nothing now. This is a small an authority that just a servant for the need of the occupier. And you trust the international law and the United Nations. What they do? Just a statement saying, we feel sorry for what happening in Palestine. The settlement grow up 5 times. The settlement grow up 5 times. We don't see any meaning of peace and peace process, and we can't believe there is any peace with the Zionism. Zionism is a colonization project. There is no peace, and if we will struggle and fight and be killed for 22% of our historical right, we will fight and struggle for all our rights. For that, we will continue our struggle. We will continue fighting to free Palestine from the river to the sea, and we can't repeat your experience and trust the world. We will continue fighting in different way, in peace activist or activity or armed activity. We believe in our rights and believe it's our rights, and we will choose the mean that's suitable for our issue. In any moment we can change our mean if it يعني necessary for our struggle. For that, this is the new generation believe. They don't trust the political party. They don't trust the Palestinian Authority. They believe. For that, we see a lot of youth going and make a personal activity. They do a lot of activity without any support or help or organize from the Palestinian Party. For that, the new generation will create the new Palestinian struggle and the new Palestinian Party, that they will rise the struggle and ask for liberate Palestine from the river to the sea, and they will not go through the illusion that we live in the past, peace process, two-state solution, and all this illusion. They will fight for all our right in Palestine from the river to the sea.
Yes, inshallah. And I see we've got about 6 minutes. So I'm going to go very quickly around all the panelists this evening, just to get some final thoughts. I'll give you 60 seconds each, a minute each, please. Starting with you, Chief Mandla.
Sorry, I will leave because I have a visitor now. Sorry for I can't continue with
That's
you.
fine. No
Thank
problem.
you
Wish
for
you well.
all what you are doing. Thank you.
We wish you well as well, and we thank you for your participation this evening. But
Thank you.
all the best to you. Yes, Chief Mandla, just 60 seconds. Final thoughts. If you could unmute, please.
Thank you. For us is to continue to mobilizing the necessary support that the Palestinian need. I think many of us get consumed in doing what we think Palestinians need, and we never go back into engaging with Palestinians and asking how can we better their struggle. And I think it's paramount that we continuously are engaging Palestinians and seeing as to how best to support their struggle. All forms of struggle are necessary within the internal resistance, within those that are fighting to uphold the dignity and defend the lives of innocent and defenseless Palestinians, but also to look at the rights of Palestinians in the Israeli jails. And we will continuously call for those three pillars that President Nelson Mandela called for our during our struggle for liberation, which was to call for the immediate release of all political prisoners, as well as unbanning all political parties so that they can be able to effectively participate in the transition to democracy. And thirdly, to call for the right of return of all Palestinians in the diaspora so that they could be able to pave a way to a democratically free Palestine.
Yes, Jonathan Pollak, 60 seconds for you, sir.
Okay, so I think I would like to try and highlight something to make clear the viciousness of Israeli apartheid. We've talked a little bit about prisoners. Amina spoke specifically about her brother. We have in Palestine something that didn't exist even in South Africa during apartheid. We have two separate and unequal systems of law under which people are judged under based on their ethnicity. So when an Israeli and a Palestinian are arrested in the West Bank together, one will be the Israeli will be processed through the Israeli Penal Code. That means that they would see a judge within 24 hours, that the whole process would be civilian. A Palestinian, however, will be processed through military law. That means that they only see a judge after 96 hours, that the person who arrested them will be a soldier in uniform, that their prosecutor will be a soldier in uniform, and even the judge will be a soldier in uniform. The legislator, the so-called legislator, is not a legislator, but rather the military commander of the West Bank. Liberal systems of law generally have the pretense of caring for those that they judge, though they preside over. They carry they strive for the well-being of the society in which they operate. Military law, which is only applied to Palestinians, does not even pretend that. It is in place only to subject Palestinians to Israeli control and perpetuate it. And it does so in a way that is the most clear and indisputable evidence of Israeli apartheid. And I think this is something that helps understanding. And this, of course, applies to children as well. And I think this helps understanding the mindset of Israeli control over Palestinians.
Well, thank you for that, Jonathan. Manal, over to you.
I just want to say something that I know that this is gonna be spread worldwide, not just in South Africa. So I want to tell people, stop criticizing Palestinians and their way of resistance. By the end, we are the one who's under occupation, and we are the one who's living pain and suffering daily basis. As long as people believe in us, they have to support us the way we choose. I don't want to call governments, because all the governments are working on their own benefits. EU, UN, all the resolution by UN that not implemented, all these. I don't want to call anybody. We are fed up of calling these governments. Talking to people who have the power of voting. They have the power of their vote. They can vote for people who really believe in equality, in justice, in freedom. This is very important. By the end, Palestine is not the cause of Palestinian. As long as there are occupation, there will be no peace, not just in Palestine, but also in Middle East, and it's gonna affect the whole world. So one hand can do something, but two hands can do a lot. All together, we're working to free Palestine. By the end, we will achieve this. But as long as people just keep talking without doing anything, I'm not saying that each one he has to do this. Each one he can choose the way how to support Palestine and how to do things to support Palestinian resistance. By the end, South Africa model is a role model for us. We are trying to learn, not copying the experience, but we are learning from their ways of resistance and how they were by the end able to get rid of this incubation, if I can say, and all this apartheid. I hope that one day we will be able to achieve what you achieved. And thank you, Chief, for everything. Thank you all for everything. And I hope to see you soon in Free Palestine.
Well, inshallah, we certainly will. And going across to Amina Salah, final thoughts.
It's like I want to hope like my brother will be freed and all the prisoners and Palestine will be free, but it's like it's so hard, but one day it's gonna happen. And I want to say, like, this generation, it's really everything is new. Before it, like, we thought about social media, it's not effective, it's not doing anything. But now like when I meet new people, I live in America, by the way. When I meet new people and they ask me, where are you from? They always saying Pakistan, not Palestine. But now when I say Palestine, they start to know, oh, we saw some news about Palestine. So, oh, that's what's happening. Can you tell me more? So what's happening now by social media and these lives and talking about Palestine, it's really spread awareness. And we hope it's going to be in the end as an action. Like here, they can affect the government for not giving, like, Israel and support them, give them taxes, all of these kind of support. But we wish and we hope it's going to be effective in the end. And inshallah, I believe, inshallah, it's going to be effective in the end. So thank you so much for focusing about Palestine and about Palestinian prisoner. And inshallah, one day we're going to be free.
Inshallah, inshallah. I mean, Prof, final thoughts from you. Last, 60 seconds. Unmute, please, Prof. Unmute.
Yes, from my side, thank you for the opportunity and for the energy that this has created, the somber and the sober energy that it is here. It was filled with realism, not pie in the sky kind of stuff. But I want to say that what energizes me and what gives me added hope is that this generation of ours, both in Palestine and across the world and in South Africa, are not settling for what their forefathers have settled for, sometimes with good intention, and that they are determined to fulfill their mission and not to betray it in any kind of way. And the road to freedom in Palestine is not on the back of a crocodile, but on a unity based on the principles, based on a unified Palestine from the river to the sea, based on a unity intifada and a common resistance against a common enemy. And we can already see the results. We see the results of the house of Zion falling apart, being dismantled. The myths that held them together cannot hold anymore. We are chipping at it all the time, and we must push more, push harder. And as the youth stand on our shoulders, we will dismantle it and bury it. And unlike Mohamed Tamimi, with him, we've planted a seed. He has planted a seed for us, and inshallah, we will reap the blessed fruit of what we have planted from him, and all his ambitions which were unrealized, we're going to realize it for our future generations. Thank you.
Inshallah, Ameen, for that, Prof. And would like to thank you, Professor Yusuf Chikte, and also all the panelists, Jonathan Pollak, Manal Tamimi, Amina Salah, and Chief Mandla Mandela, and also Bassem Tamimi, who is now gone. But to all of you, we do appreciate you taking time out this evening right here with us in the company of Salam Media, our listeners, our viewers on the various platforms, Salam Media, and looking forward to further discussions, but more importantly, looking forward to, as all our panelists have alluded to the freedom of Palestine, where all of us together, inshallah, will walk free in the land of Palestine. Well, that brings us to the end of this evening's broadcast. And I've just seen a message, Palestine, we bleed for you. May Allah free Palestine soon. Ameen. That's from Surya Mamin. Azada, united, we will stand for Palestine. And this is what we will do. We will continue at Salam Media, and also at the same time encourage our listeners, our viewers to embrace this cause of Palestine, embrace it as your personal, your very own cause until we see this freedom of Palestine. And with that, I'm going to be signing off from myself and the rest of the team here at Salam Media. We wish you well. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.